but a former Sooner found a new home. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, Nick Anderson's got a new home. Going to the Bayou with Bauer Sharp. LSU Tigers must have saw what Garrett Nussmeier was capable of and decided, you know what, I'll go play with that.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of weird. The weird thing I thought about all of that is that everybody felt the need to really keep posting over and over that not only he's gone to LSU, but he's officially signed with them immediately as well. And it's like, I haven't seen that for any other players out there, but I totally get it. Nick Anderson is a force when healthy that could be, very beneficial to what LSU is doing. Adding him with Bauer Sharp, they'll be able to be a 1-2 combo since LSU lost a whole bunch of wide receivers in the portal too. So, I mean, happy for him. I'm glad he's going to be there. We'll see him at the end of the season, which I'm pretty excited. He'll come here last game of the year. Hopefully he's healthy, and then boom, we can remind him of why he should have stayed here at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think there are going to be some guys that are going to want to try and make some noise in that game for the Sooners. What do you think about just the fact that, okay, you've seen so many Oklahoma Sooners depart, and they're landing at SEC schools. They're landing, in Power 4 situations.
Tells you that players weren't bad. It's just the big thing is being healthy, and especially Bauer Sharp going to LSU was not a surprise to me. He's going back home. He was from Louisiana. That's where he came from when we brought him up into the SEC initially, and they saw him as like, no, he's got the size and ability. And he's athletic as heck. You just don't want him to be like the focal point doing everything, while at the same time understanding year 2 in a P4, strength and conditioning program and just setup could completely refine his game to where he's a lot better. Nick came in, he's 6'4", 220, and he's a nice size wide receiver that should have been getting a lot more attention before. But of course, the unfortunate thing was he couldn't stay healthy. Healthy his freshman year. He was injured his freshman year, played last year as a redshirt freshman, and then got hurt as this season was going on. So you hope that he gets out there and gets healthy, but he's going to be something good. He's going to be a really special wide receiver once he's healthy, because he's a really good route runner, and Nick's a very hard worker. So we'll see. I'm just excited to be able to see him. And I do believe, though, we'll bring in some players, though, that I'll be able to match up.
Oh, for sure. And then the other one that found a new home was Eugene Brooks. BJ Brooks is going back out west to UCLA.
Nice. I missed that one. That's actually really good. I figured he was going to end up going back home. UCLA is a fantastic spot. Former Sooner and Tennessee Vol and Ole Miss Rebel Key Lawrence is actually at UCLA as well. So that's actually pretty interesting to see that you got both those guys heading that way. But it made sense for Eugene Brooks to go home and play for the school close to him. He was from Sierra Canyon, and that's actually pretty awesome.
Looking at portal needs, Jay, what do you think is still the biggest need for Oklahoma?
Wide receiver. We need to fill that room up. If we get a quarterback, which if we get one in the next couple of days, I assume that we'll probably get a couple of we'll get some wide receivers probably commit right afterwards if that happens within the next 2 days. But 100% wide receiver. We need a lot more wide receivers right now. We need to refill that room, restock it. I know that Jaden Gibson's going to come back, but it's going to take him about 8 months to get to that exact time period where he's healthy again. So I expect that injury to hold him off at least until probably spring game, possibly summer. But then you'll have Deion Burks, who's looking to try to play here in the bowl game, and then all the young guys around him. But you need a couple more veterans to mix in with the young players. That way the young players aren't trying to carry the weight of the team. Even though they learned a lot. They were forged a lot in fire this past season. But I think wide receiver is number one for me. What position do you think is tops?
Yeah, I mean, wide receiver is the one that stands out the most. I'd still like to see them add an impactful tight end, unless they just feel like, hey, next year, Davin Mitchell, he's going to be ready to roll. He's going to be, or Caden Helms. that those guys are going to be ready to take up the tight end mantle. You haven't heard them really connected to many tight ends. They had the offer to the Tulsa tight end, but that didn't go that direction. He ended up going to Houston, actually. So it's odd where Oklahoma's at in the tight end market, but if they just don't feel like that there's one out there that's more impactful than the guys that they've got in house, then by all means, let the guys in house develop and continue to work with those guys and see where they can go. But yeah, wide receiver, I still feel like you need maybe 2 guys with production to add to the roster. I like the guys that they've got in 2020, in the 2024 class and the 2025 class. You just want to have a little bit more security, right? Because you saw what it looked like when you had no experience at wide receiver, and it was rough, man. It was just absolutely rough. Now, you might have a dude in that 2025 class, like an Elijah Thomas, that says, no, I'm ready. Let's do this. Let's go play ball. Or a guy like Zion Kearney or Zion Raggins, maybe they're a little bit more prepared this next go round. You know, that first swim through the SEC, that was not smooth sailing for anybody on the offensive side of the ball. So it's hard to make any real judgments about their ability or their trajectory. There's still a lot of potential for those guys. So we'll see. But I think if you want to have some security and feel good about it, adding 2 guys to just make sure you have enough production and experience at wide receiver, I think is going to benefit you. Because I feel good about slot. If you want to say Deion Burks is still your slot wide receiver and Jacob Jordan behind him, I feel good there. You got to find some guys to play on the outside. Is there a spot on the roster you feel like, hey, we're good, we don't need to add anybody?
Honestly, I think linebacker is the one you really don't need to add anybody in. We've got a long list of dudes that even when they played in the little bit of experience they had, they looked good. And they're looking like they developed. I think the linebacker room is probably the most solid out of it. Right behind that is safety. Those are the 2 rooms, and I'm like, yeah, we probably don't need anybody else additionally. And if I go with a third, running back room. I think with X-Rob, Taylor Tatum, and the fact that we still got Barnes, both Sawchucks back there, makes me say, yeah, I think that running back room is going to be fine. Well, it just depends if everybody sticks, which I kind of have a feeling it will. Or we'll find out that guys decide to hit the portal after the bowl game. And then at that point, makes sense. Probably want to get in the bowl game, get a little bit more tape, and then boom, hit the portal and see what's going on. So that gives them like 2 days to at least put their information in. You don't have to commit anywhere until before school starts, but you need to have your name in the portal before the 29th. I think that those 3 rooms are probably the more solid ones right now. We may need to grab one more edge just to have some additional experience down there on the line, and probably 1, if not 2 big guys in the middle, just so you have some good rotational pieces, because you don't want your guys in there having 800 snaps in the season. You want to keep them around 300, maybe 4, and you're going to rotate a lot of those young ones in. But I think, if anything, those are probably the 3 positions I say, nah, you don't need nobody.
Yeah, so much of what happens at defensive tackle is going to depend on what Dominic Williams decides to do.
It's true.
He was non-committal when he spoke with the media earlier this week. If he decides to come back, I think you're good to go with Dominic Williams and Jaden Jackson and Grayson Halton as your top 3. David Stone coming in behind that, and Trent Wilson. I think you can feel pretty good about it. Marcus Strong is still on the roster, and when he played, he showed some really, really good things as a guy that can be a 3-deep defensive lineman for you. I think running back, I think you're right, especially as you bring in Torrey Blaylock, another really explosive kid to add to the running back room. I think you're pretty well set there. Cornerback, I could see them going and trying to add some more depth there because, again, like we talked about at wide receiver with Jaden Gibson, you're not sure what the future looks like with Gentry Williams. At this point, you expect him to be back, but how healthy is he going to be able to be, and how healthy will he stay? So that's kind of where I'm leaning. Is cornerback still is a need, but I'm good at linebacker. I'm good at safety. I'm good at defensive tackle, to be fair. And then, yeah, if you can add to me an impactful edge rusher, somebody who's got some production to his name, then by all means do it. If you're just kind of finding a depth piece, I wouldn't sweat that too much, because I think you got some good depth pieces on the roster unless you just want to throw some more competition at the young guys. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So go go follow us over on those social media accounts. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer
Sooner. Ba, 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 ba,